What's going on here? Hey Thomas,
Hello.
before I forget, so I went to take Chewy just now to get his barber shop, and as I was pulling out, there was a guy pulled in with a his pickup truck. He had a bunch of timber on the lashed to it or whatever. And he's
Uh-huh.
like calling out. I opened my gate and he's good morning. Hey, good morning. And he was pulling a bunch of materials, building materials off. It's like, oh, what are we doing today? And he said, like, well, do you know John and Sally? So the neighbors 2 houses down. I was like, yeah, totally know them. And I said, and I asked, it's like, what's I haven't seen John. I mean, I know. So John's he's a art department guy in the industry,
Uh-huh.
and I've known that he's oftentimes he's just not he's on the road for months at a time, and I knew
Right.
that he was working on that. It's not very good. He said, matter of fact, he told me he's like nothing to look forward to. When I asked him about it, he's working on that the Jack Ryan thing. Or is
Okay.
it Jack Ryan? He
Yeah.
said nothing to look forward to. It's like okay, and actually I watched it and I found like in the first like 20 minutes I was like so confused. I was just like I don't know about this. Maybe there's nothing to look forward to. But parenthetically, this guy said like, it's kind of good. Give it another shot. I was like, all right, I'll give it another shot. He's like, I like it. And anyway, so I asked him, I was like, so how do you know John? He's like, well, he's like, what's going on now that there's with the work with the strikes, he's like, everything's shut down. So he's like, us production coordinators are just working on each other's house. He's like, there's a guy doing that one, guy over there doing that one, and it's like I'm working on John's house. And so they just kind of, I don't know what exactly it is, but I was just like, man, that's fucking awesome. I love it. And of course, in my
That
mind, I'm thinking
yeah.
like, okay, what do we, how is that reflected? I'm not sure what it is, but it got me excited. Maybe later, I told the guys like, oh, I got to run, but it would be great to just chat.
That that would be like a whole funny other magazine
Yeah,
of
yeah,
like ten homes remodeled during the last strike by
yeah, 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 something like that, or maybe there's just like a, or you know, a
I mean,
like a classified, like need work done.
You know
yeah.
how backyard offices became a thing during the pandemic?
Mhm.
I feel like maybe during the strike, everybody, all these movie people are starting to make like backyard studios.
Mm,
So small, small virtual production studios, small little green screen things like productions start happening in people's backyards. So there's something funny about that, like a classified like a contractor. It's like
You know those like those Home Depot like prefabbed
yeah, yeah, yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
shacks, but it's like a prefab
Virtual studio
virtual.
Virtual
Yeah.
studio. We got to do that. We got to do
done.
that.
Well, they were doing that during the pandemic, right? I mean, they were making films in each other's backyards.
Yeah.
So this just as an extension.
Yeah, it's an extension, and it's like and it's like I like the parallel to like how backyard offices replaced sheds in backyards, and now it's turned into like, oh, we only work through my backyard office, like remote working. So now it becomes, maybe this strike will extend it to backyard virtual studios, and then post strike it'll be like, yeah, I'm a remote filmmaker. I
And
only
Is
that's
I only
different
there?
do
from an
remote work.
indie filmmaker, right?
Well, what if it goes beyond indie? What if like I'm a remote
Yeah, and
box off major film production remote person?
what's the return to office policy that everybody gets forced into at a certain point too? And like, what's the how do they start like creating like movies against the RTO and everything? I don't know if
The
that would turn into
return to
anything.
studio.
Yeah, or RTS.
Yeah.
What's the protocol, informal or formal, for like, are actors meant to like not work at all in a sign of solidarity? Like, could they, presumably they can't do commercial work, or they shouldn't, right? If they're a member, card carrying member, and they don't want to get shamed, but can they do unscripted stuff, or would that just be a kind of violation of the sensibility of what we're standing for and that kind of thing?
Or is it just like, can they still do unpaid stuff? Because when there was the writer's strike in the mid-aughts, you know, there were productions that were happening like more for the love of doing, like the Dr. Horrible sing-along blog was a perfect example of something that happened during the writer's strike, but I don't think anybody got paid for that. I think they just did it because they were itching to make content, but you know, that was a writer's strike. Now that we have writers and actors, like, can you act even just for the love of it?
Yeah,
or
it's a
is it
question. So like if
event?
someone put on like, hey, we're gonna do you know, we're gonna do a play in my backyard, and these famous actors are gonna be there. I guess, you know, they probably do something like that if they're like, is gonna benefit the strike. Um, you know, it was always when I was in a union, it was always like, you know, trying to continue to fill the coffers for the labor action emergency fund, you know, because people like, I need income.
Right. I think that I don't know the total. It depends on who's distributing it. So obviously, even if Netflix wasn't paying you right now, if you're like, you couldn't act for free for you definitely can't do anything that is being run by any of the members of the AMPTP. So
What's
I
that stand
believe
for? Association of Meteorological
motion
Picture
television producers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it gets a little. I think there are certain ways that you can still work, but it's there. It
So
was more clear
Julian,
when it was the writers.
Yeah.
get these student films going at USC.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's too bad Taryn's not here. I think she would know for sure. Or they could just start their construction companies. Because
It's a tough racket from what I hear. Tough racket. I like the idea that they're working at each other's house. I mean, I don't, it's hard to even tell. I was like, what is John doing in his house that he needs this 16-foot 4x4 and one slab of like floor plank? You know, like what's going on in there?
well,
And
it's
a
like
bunch of tar,
interesting.
big roll of tar paper. It's like,
It's interesting because you really don't have time to do that when you're working. You know, it's not like you, especially if you're working in art department. It's not like I don't imagine you wanting to come home after building sets all day,
hell
come
no.
back and build a set in your backyard,
Yeah.
essentially.
Well, I guess you never know. Some people are just kind of like, I love slinging a hammer.
Yeah.
You know that there's
Or
going to
just
be a
even the
few
idea of like
people.
calling up your friend, you know, your other friend. I mean, there's something just so beautiful about it.
Yeah.
Maybe because I'm jealous, because I mean, I'd love to have a group of friends who knew how to sling a hammer properly. Yeah. I mean, I just have to ring up Lucio, which is fine. I like Lucio. Hey, Julian, how's it going, my friend? Mio. To help me, not even help me, just like me point and say like, you know, deck goes there. um, but it was just kind of cool. Like he was all gung ho, and he's like, yeah, you know, Bob's over there, and Edgar's down there, and you know, we're all gonna sit on an apple crate during lunch and drink a beer and have a hoagie sandwich. Oh
Yeah.
man, amazing! Can I hang out?
There's going to be like some delay in the agreement of a contract because a group of people haven't finished their home renos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I need another two and a
But
half
push this
weeks.
back.
No, 2.5 weeks, almost done. I'm not going to live with like a blue tarp over my house for the next 6 months. No way.
So I don't know how this works, but I wonder if I can bring up a topic to talk about.
That's how it works.
That's how
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah, back
Good.
back it up, and we'll make some room for it.
All right. Well, I am a mentor at Los Alamos. I don't work on anything that's nuclear. All of the fellows that I work with are working on things like biotech and space and satellites and manufacturing issues and materials and stuff like that. Anything but nuclear, because I don't have the clearance for it. First of all, and furthermore, I'm not an employee. I'm just a contractor. I'm a consultant. So, but there is a place called the Feynman Center for Innovation.
Love Feynman. Love Feynman.
Yeah, exactly. And great big picture of him in the lobby, and it's really
Yeah,
cool.
playing the bongos or standing there?
Just standing. They
Okay.
weren't creative enough to actually do something that interesting. But anyway, because frankly, there is still sort of a military kind of culture there, as one might imagine. So my thing though is that up to this point, I have been teaching them sort of about user experience research and product development. But the thing is that these people are big science, really big science. And so their objective is to take what they worked on their PhD and keep spawning businesses and exiting them and making millions of dollars. That's what they do. Almost all of them are that way. So it means they're not actually making products themselves. The people they sell to, people they exit to, are the ones who are going to make something out of it. So I got to thinking, wait a minute. They don't know about future stuff, though. I mean, some of these people might have been exposed to it, like at MIT or Georgia Tech or Caltech or wherever they went, right? But they're way too busy usually to think in those terms while they're working at Los Alamos. So I have an audience with the people who run the Innovation Center, and I've said, what if we talk about futures? What if we help them think through the next 2 to 5 years? And here's the deal. Here's the way I'm pitching it. It's not just for their work to hit the ground, but I was talking to this one lady who's a really brainy scientist. And she said, look, I don't develop products, other people develop it. But I've been talking to quote unquote customers, as they're told to do. And out of 45 people, I've determined that there are maybe 12 potential applications that my customers might be interested in. But one of them is more likely to monetize now. And I'm thinking, but if you think in terms of evolution, it's not about the innovation, it's about the conditions in which the innovation comes out. So why don't we work on helping them think through what might the conditions need to be for this kind of innovation to hit the ground running? And that gets them into thinking 5 years from now, for instance, and thinking, what is it that I've got? And yes, some people are talking about this, but of the people I've talked to who have an innovation in mind, what could be done? But they could also be thinking, what other applications are we not talking about? Are the customers even not talking about that I could be pitching, or at least I could be talking about? And we could have these ideas in mason jars up on the shelf someplace, and they're going to sit there until conditions are right, until for this thing to either be just something sustainable, not necessarily huge growth, or something that will take off, or something that's just marked for extinction. It's just going to die no matter what, because those conditions are black swan, very unlikely. And so with my doing this pitch, though, I'm thinking about, because they're going to ask me, well, Susan, how do you suggest we actually do this tactically? They use the word tactically. So I was thinking, well, that's a very good point, because I'm going to guess that some of these scientists are not imagination people. They're really hard. So since I've got such an august group here, I'm interested in your ideas about how I might workshop this, at least to introduce it to them. You know, I could run, you know, an introducing design fiction and then have them run through an exercise. It's probably not going to go all the way through to having an artifact. Probably not, but I don't know. And so I wondered if you guys have some thoughts about how I might integrate futures and in particular design fiction at this innovation lab.
I mean, I got some thoughts. I think that you could come out with a lot of artifacts. To me, that seems like a very simple a simple task once you set the ground rules, and even playing in the world of like what Julian's talking a lot about these days, like imagination and structure and how those two things can coexist. By the way, I like what you had to say about that in your last podcast, Julian.
Sorry, what was
I
that?
think
What was that last thing you said? You phased out.
Oh, sorry. You were talking about imagination and structure, a relationship between the two.
Yeah.
In your last podcast, and I think that's
And
this is a
in the
perfect
last
example.
book.
And then the last book too. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. The when you're dealing with an audience, like you have probably a lot more analytical and structured. I think you can introduce some structure to tease in the idea of design fiction. So there's like models out there, like futures models, like generic futures or the Three Horizons model, which is a nice structured way of looking at the future. And then what you do is it just sets the stage for where you might want to imagine harder about, you know, a positive trajectory versus a negative trajectory versus a transformative one versus a disciplined one, right?
Okay.
So now you've created these little sandboxes that or corners. You've identified the corners of the sandbox that you can start digging a few shallow holes around. And then the work kit of design fiction is a great tool to push ideas out like that. I created a similar tool called Strategic Science Fiction, which is at strategicsci-fi.com. And it's their workshop cards that tap into existing emerging technologies. So something like that, I would curate a deck that would be emerging technologies that are specific to the sciences or the technologies that you're dealing with.
I really appreciate that, and I mentioned it on the Discord, but mission patches are gigantic there. I mean, this is the one I picked up on Monday. And so, you know, a mission, even the people who aren't working on space are very well aware of what a mission patch is. And at least now you're dealing with logos and concepts in a patch. But here's another thing, is that these scientists, as you can imagine, are all very specifically working on their particular thing. And so here I come and I'm thinking, well, we can choose a domain. Do we want to do biotech? Do we want, or maybe I want to choose a different kind of domain, not one that is in their academic background. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I might kind of introduce, like, kind of along the lines of what Trey is talking about, but like I think a big part of design fiction is like learning how to play, being informal with your ideas, allowing yourself to be wrong, not worrying about being 100% correct. And because I mean, the fact of the matter is, no matter how well researched you are, no one's 100% correct about what's happening in 10 years. So to get people going, it's really helpful, I think, to take people out of what they're super familiar with and with what they think they know is going to happen. I definitely think things get a lot easier when you have the constraints of a design fiction work kit or anything like that. And So maybe starting out with one of these looser exercises just to get the imagination going. And then obviously people's like predispositions of what they're into are going to creep in over time. So like these people love science. So yeah, they're probably going to talk about science if after
Right.
like 20 minutes, just like let that happen. The job of like the workshop is to get the imagination going, and then they'll reel themselves back into the like what they're super into.
Thank you for mentioning that, because one of the people who's in charge of all this specifically said that they need to get these people to loosen up a little bit. They
Yeah,
need to,
chill
and
them
so
out,
that's what, so when I'm
play some
thinking the
music,
design,
like
I'm sorry.
play a little music in the background, light some candles.
Exactly. Set it up like an IDEO lab or something.
Yeah, get the
And so what I
Post-its
was
out.
thinking, what's great about the
No,
design
no,
kit
no
is-
Post-its. Don't do Post-its.
no
That'll ruin
Post-its.
everything. That'll ruin everything.
Yeah.
All you need is more structure but in colors. Yeah.
Let's see what
And
kind of
start
whiteboards.
falling off the wall. And hey, did someone get a picture of that? As if the picture is going to be any use at all.
Maybe I need to have them cutting pictures out of fashion magazines, something like that.
You
One
know,
thing you
I did a
mentioned,
really great workshop that, sorry, Dre, but
no
just
worries.
on the notion of cutting out pictures, one of the most fun workshops I did was we had to make collages of the concept that we had created, and that was super fun. I don't know if that, I mean, I'm at an art school, so we like collages, but
But that's actually
yeah.
a really fascinating idea. I hadn't really thought about it because I end up being so digital. And Dre, I know you had something you wanted to bring up, but I sort of imagining like doing that as an exercise because it's got this material constraint, right? You have to find an image that you're feeling enough about that you can add it to it. And it also, just because of the constraints, like you can't be perfect in this beautiful way that collage, or I guess perfect from the point of view of like that looks weird. They're different. The color tone of all these things are different, and I can see the Scotch tape, but it's like that's okay. It's all right.
Mhm,
You just
mhm.
kind of it's like you're cobbling things together. What do you think, Trey?
I think the idea of prototyping the artifact doesn't have to be finished and polished right away. Like we've got to get to it somewhere. But you mentioned how mission patches are important,
Yeah.
and like to me that was like that's it. That would be a great introduction. It's like this is it. You're making a mission patch, and a mission patch is a perfect artifact because it doesn't tell the whole story at all. It only tells you something
Yeah.
very, very specific, and you can prototype it with scissors and construction paper and markers, and you try to mock up what this looks like because it's going to be 2 or 3 color illustration that. But what is the mission? Like, what did you accomplish? What did you achieve in the mission? And then all the questions can come from that. Well, make the achievement super, super specific about something, and then the conversation surrounds that. Well, how did we end up doing that? How do we get to that point? And what kind of world are we in that this is the mission that got escalated to high priority? Like that sounds like so much fun. That's a great afternoon. That and make it more fun. Just throw some drinks in, and Bob's your uncle.
Yeah,
I love the-
exactly. And what I was going to say is because the design kit sort of lends itself more to consumer products to some extent, as opposed to some of the big stuff that I'm dealing with. I mean, this kind of grounds it. Everybody knows a consumer product. And also it'll probably be a great deal less complex than what they're working with. Definitely. I mean, we don't think that consumer products aren't complex, but compared to what these people are working on, it is. So, and it also very much takes them out of their own heads. So I'm really feeling like working with the design kit as it is a good start.
Well, one thing I was going to offer here too is that like getting different types of people into the mix might be helpful in some way. But I think like been working on a workshop for my group where there's a lot of like R&D type of people, and moving from R&D to application. I think there's a paper I'm just going to post in the chat about analogical innovation, which is this idea of finding kind of schemas of characteristics for a particular solution or technology,
Yeah.
and then looking at where are there times where that problem is actually solved with those characteristics, or a solution that uses those characteristics that is cross-domain? And so
Okay,
I don't
good.
I think it's a really interesting paper. I've been trying to work on both directions, where it's like, here's the characteristics, where we try to disambiguate the problem we're trying to solve, and then
Okay.
look for solutions that meet those characteristics. But I think it goes both directions probably. So something to check out, I think, is really
Okay,
interesting.
good.
Because you could generate those characteristics and then have someone that is a non-technical person say, like, what are these characteristics usually solving, or where are the domains that these characteristics are common in some way?
Well, the good news is that right in Los Alamos, not off the campus, it does look remarkably like an IDEO studio. I couldn't believe what I saw. So fortunately, I kind of already have the setup, and if I, yes, take away their Post-it notes and we get to more fundamental things like crayons and cutting things out, I don't know. What I'm trying to do is propose something to the people who would say yes or no to all of this in a way that they would think, yes, this is going to help, because they need to attract people. That's the point. They're trying to attract people who are not doing nuclear things and just tell them, you are going to advance your brain. This is like postgraduate school for them. And that is the objective. Try to give them an experience and learning that they wouldn't ordinarily get. So I really appreciate all of your comments. I really appreciate it. And if, by the way, if any of you think of anything else, my proposal is going out probably later today. So if something else pops into mind, let me know.
Aim it towards the people who are going to say yes, not the people who are going to say no. And once you get them enrolled, then they'll you know, when they barbecue with the people who would say no because they're curmudgeonly or whatever, they'll be like,
Yeah.
all right, you know, that sounds cool. And do
Unfortunately,
those things like it totally works to be like, if I were to tell you that you were able to bring imagination back into this institution, what would you say? You'd be like, well, of course. And if I were to tell you that this is what it's going to look like and this is what's going to be the shape of it in order to bring inspiration back here, what would you say? And be like, yeah, that totally sounds great. And if I were to tell you it's going to cost this much and you could have this amazing organization that would recruit people, you know, basically tell them what they want to hear. And then you can have that conversation, then everything starts clicking.
Yeah, I like you that you use the word inspiration, because that might actually go over better than the word imagination. Imagination may seem like too much fantasy to them, and they're not talking about dragons over there. So inspiration is
we need to reinvest imagination with this actual utility function, which is, you know, like constructively finding like the best way to run away from that big beast that's chasing me through the tundra. Like, well, a tree. I wonder what would happen if I went up that. Hey, look at that. That worked. Now, how do I get out of the tree? I wonder. Maybe if I shimmy out over this thing. I mean, that's like evolution stuff. It's like how we survive.
And my talk about evolution is actually making points. And I read a fair amount about evolution and ecologies, and that actually gets me traction.
Yeah.
When I talk about design fiction.
Yeah, but I mean, I get the challenge, and I think part of the work that I think, you know, I'm trying to do definitely, and I think we all are in one way or another, is to reinvest it with this, you know, with it's not all the bad associations that have been attributed to things like daydreaming, or you know, letting your mind wander, or you know, those kinds of things are.
Having done too much LSD.
Yeah, it's time to kind of bring those back to, and you know, the value of them, as opposed to just, you know, stop your daydreaming. You just get on, you're being silly. It's like, yeah, I am being silly, because that's, you know, great ideas start from nonsense. They don't start from like, oh, I know everything I need to do. It's like, you know, I brought up the example recently a bunch of times. I don't know why it's stuck. I guess it's stuck in my head because it's like, you know, sort of RIP Twitter moment. Is I remember when Twitter, I was like, you know, early Twitter, it was just SMS, and I was a cool kid because I had a Nokia that had T9, so I could like type out where I was quicker than anyone else. Or, you know, like it was a little bit easier, but it was also nonsense. Like, why would I do this? Why would I send a tweet out that just said London because I happen to be there? but everyone in that network, you know, like all 30,000 of us or whatever, knew what that meant, and something would happen. You know, people were like, you know, people call you or you find out and you connect, and but it didn't make any sense. And if you asked anyone else at that time, if you ask like a normal human who maybe couldn't feel the you know the fun energy around like, oh my god, you wired some weird thing up, that's totally cool, and didn't and would just say like, that's nonsense, you guys are silly, okay, you know, doesn't make any sense to me. And it's like, well, because you're not trying, which is fine, I get it, not everything's gonna, you know, there's gonna be some folks, one person's nonsense is another person's like you know, wonderful potential, wonderful fountain of potentiality. I don't know what we're going to do with this thing, but we're going to find something. And all the stories about, like, not all of them, but some of them. I was just reading this this epic kind of I don't know what is, a document on the whole space program kind of thing. And you know, they bring up the examples like all the great innovations that happen around it. And the author was making the points like, these weren't not to diminish the importance and value of NASA, but it's like, these were not that administration's innovations. These were innovations that were happening elsewhere that kind of got absorbed into it, which is you know, it's fascinating thing about it. But he's like talking about like the Velcro thing, like the story of the dog in the field and the burrs, and the guy wanting to, I didn't know this part of it, the guy wanting to find out a quick way to get the burrs off of his dog, which I always have to do to Chewy when he goes rolling around. And he just invented the other side of the Velcro. And that you know, at some point that someone could send like, that's kind of nonsense. Like, how often do you need to really do that? What was that the best use of your time? Shouldn't you be whatever you do normally or whatever? But that person looked at it and decided not to just kind of shrug and be like, yeah, I'll just pull them off.
Yeah.
But did the kind of nonsensical thing. And now, I mean, I got Velcro all over the place. And most of the time it's useful.
Yes, I need to sell them nonsense. And by the way, I'm in Santa Fe, and George R.R. Martin lives here. So, you know, the thought of dragons is all over the place. So separating that world from this big science stuff is an actual occupation.
Yeah.
It's something that we have to work at.
I wonder if it's, rather than separating, it's just highlighting the adjacency. You know, like a lot of fiction. I mean, you know, this is another thing that was in this book. So I was reading it last night, was that relationship between the, you know, fiction, which is a prototyping of possibility, right? Whether it's, you know, in more practical cases, it's like science fiction. And that's another way of exploring. I think that would probably be pretty resonant to at least some of the more, you know, expansive thinkers within the universe you're talking about. They're like, they can probably say, maybe even without embarrassments, like, yeah, I love science fiction. Actually, I wish I could do some of that. That would be a wonderful way of kind of scratching this itch that I've had since I was a little kid. And I just ended up becoming like an engineer or scientist or whatever, but they might be able to recognize that it's the same set of muscles. And they might, you know, they might want to do more, you know, more, you know, what I find unhelpful border control, like saying like, oh, you know, but what that guy wrote about in that book, that's not really actually possible. And it's sort of like, you're kind of missing the point, aren't you? If you stop to think about it, like that person is prototyping an idea that probably if you dug down a few layers in your psychic stack, you're like, man, I wish I had thought of that. And in order to suffer through that sense of I can't do it, but they were able to in this other form, they say it's not possible. You know.
I was gonna say, this is a self-directed fire-breathing drone.
Yeah.
Maybe not entirely self-directed, but
yeah,
somewhat autonomous.
Yeah, and why'd you name, you know, imagining that the world that you sort of constructed, man, it's like, and so why did you name it Dragonfire?
Yeah.
If there's no such thing as dragons. Well, because okay, here we go.
Nice.
Gotcha. Check.
Nice.
Check and mate.
Well, some of these people, I do believe I can get down on the floor and roll around a little bit.
Get some jujitsu. Some jujitsu going.
Wow.
The
I do feel like I read a paper one time that said that when design like charades start by having someone read the phone book, people are actually more creative than if they start with a creative exercise.
that's why I think some of this stuff that we were creating like could be helpful. Like if we had like a whole stack of artifacts, you know, we're starting to get them, right? So there's the TBD catalog, and Jed and I are working on the androids book, and Thomas is Thomas is working on the magazine from the future for entertainment, and Drew's working on the magazine for the future from the fashion industry. I think I just want to have people have a stack of these things, just as like, I don't know, just I need some inspiration. Oh, this is cool, and something happens. You know, you see this stuff, and you're kind of like, whether you know, if you're able to not to be like, well, this is all fiction. If you're able to be like, oh, that just made me think of something, and that's really that's a exceptional utility, especially for
I'm
people
thinking,
who are like in that mode of like, I'm stuck, I can't think of anything. And you got anything?
and wouldn't it be great if this innovation center had an exhibition space that rotated depending on what kinds of artifacts people come up with?
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
Yep. Let's see how far down the conversation I can get with that. All right, again, thank you so much. Taryn, I'm reading your comment.
Yeah, what is
Okay.
that, Taryn? I haven't heard about that. It sounds interesting. And if
Yeah.
it's in LA, it's like let's raid
Yeah,
them.
Julian, you've never been there. Interesting. It's a division of the National Academy of Sciences back in DC, not the big one. There's like an offshoot. It's a privately founded and funded nonprofit. And they host these events. I was just invited to like a lunch downtown. And usually it's a science speaker, either a technology or a scientist, but they bring Hollywood people in because they want to be able to inspire better storytelling with science. And so they will have these events. They'll have like science speed dating events where they'll take over like CAA, and like 150 people in the industry show up, and they'll have, let's say, 6 different scientists in different rooms that will give you like a 15-minute presentation on what they do and a quick question and answer. So you basically are inundated with the research that these people are doing. And it's across spectrum. So there'll be an astrophysicist, there'll be like an exobiologist, there'll be a geneticist. And it's one of my happy places because I write sci-fi. And they offer free consulting as well. So if you are a writer or a producer and you want accurate science consulting on your project, they will align you with the proper expert. So it's a really, really cool group.
I'd like to get connected with that. I'd love to.
I will
hang
be
out
happy
there.
to connect you. I know them quite well.
That'd be awesome.
Sure.
I'd love that.
So then the trick is for the scientists to learn how to communicate about what they do in a way that's understandable outside of their field. So Taryn, can you talk about how that's worked out?
Yes, there's a really robust group of SciComm folks in LA. So
Okay.
I sort of have been, they were the first group that I was kind of indoctrinated into as sort of a science enthusiast and a sci-fi writer, initially through Sean Carroll, who's a physicist, and he's just an absolutely incredible communicator and writer. And so sort of from that central group, I sort of grew to meet all these other scientists, and it's just the community that like science discourse and being public facing is just part of the DNA of this group that I know. So, and they used to be at least really active on Twitter. Now I'd say Blue Sky is more of a SciComm place that I'm seeing. I'm more in the climate space as well now, and you kind of have to be an excellent communicator these days to be a climate scientist if you're front facing, because you just get so much pushback.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to like push you in the right direction.
I would love that, because they've actually at Los Alamos, they've actually spoken about how they need their scientists to be better communicators.
Yeah. No,
Yes, please.
this
is, I assume, an informal group, right?
Yeah, there's a group that they're called the Nerd Brigade, and they're a bunch of scientists, but they all are, have one of them is an excellent YouTuber. I mean, he has like millions and millions of followers. His YouTube name is Veritasium. His name is Derek Muller, and he's just, I mean, hands down can give a give a talk. I mean, he did this recent breakdown. God, I forget maybe it was just on quantum computing, but it was incredible. I was like, I'd never seen anything like it before. So
Nice.
I'll get your email. I have to go to a doctor's appointment, unfortunately, but I will get your email from Julian or find you on Discord, and I'll start hooking you up with people.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
I have another topic if people are open to that. If we're done, I went to the near future laboratory offices and tried to get the form for the new proposal, and they were all out. And the person who mans that office or woman's that office is actually out on leave.
And Augie and IT just pulled the RJ45 connector from your feed.
Now Chris is out on leave.
That's right. Oh, you didn't get the email overnight? Yeah, you're fired. Oh well, he'll come back. I'm trying to remember because he reached out to me and he's like, "Is there a procedure for proposing a project?" And it's like, "Yeah, you gotta talk to Raquel in procurement. She's on floor 5, and just run by her. And she's the one who's actually has the mimeograph machine, because we're gonna need that in triplet because one's got to get to." We were joking that Augie and IT actually just pulled the RJ45 from the server room because he's like, this Chris guy is just such a pain in the ass. I swear to God.
I kept on going to different offices. Sorry, my computer overheated for a moment because there's like a direct sunlight right on the keyboard for some reason. But yeah, so I tried to find all the forms are out. I finally cornered Julian and asked him about this, and he relented and let me in on a little secret about like maybe just talking to people about it here. So. I was thinking a lot about and so I've been doing some of that organizational design fiction, and I'm actually writing a piece right now that's like a short, basically a flash sci-fi piece about what happens in Return to Office in the apocalypse, where all of the offices keep working, but everything else outside of it is really bad. And so it's a little bit of like a satire, but been thinking a lot about like my day job is doing a lot of stuff around the way that we do work and work together inside of organizations. And so thinking about creating a near future laboratories employee manual that includes onboarding, and gets shipped to you as like some binder with like a cellophane packed like paper that you need to put into the 3-ring binder. And on top of it, there's people that have like annotated it with kind of the way things that really work here. And then the HR team is also like papered over certain policies that they've had to correct because people were taking advantage of them. But just kind of thinking about like in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, if we really start thinking about not just the technology of work, but like the way we end up making decisions together, how we argue, how we do all these things. I was thinking about doing something like that. And so it's going to model it after some employee handbooks that I've seen previously, and then take like there's a bunch of web pages that are like the 10 worst HR policies that are like worst for workers, and just like amping that up to a lot, like 1,000, and then taking things like the ready tension cards, which talk a lot about like problems inside, and the design fiction kit, and kind of creating a bunch of different technologies and policies that would make us question the way we do work, basically. And so I don't know, I wanted to get some advice for people on how to execute a project like that. And then I guess a next step would be I'm happy to start helping coordinate that type of thing and be a showrunner if people think it would be interesting, and things like that. So anyways, I was just thinking about that. I'd love to get people's reactions and where that makes them think about.
I really like that idea of an employee manual. I worked at an agency where we effectively just brainwashed everybody to join our cult, and we had all these we'd come up with all kinds of sayings and rules that you had to live by, and we created a cult of creativity around it, and we ended up publishing a book a few years ago called Rethinking Creativity. I think it's on Amazon.
Cool.
And it's basically, it's all like, we had a thing called the 1 or 100 rule. And and it was like your best idea is going to be your first idea or your 100th idea. You just don't know until you've done the work. And this is what we would tell everyone. And you just believe this stuff and you follow the rules. And as long as you follow the rules, you would stay in line and do that. And I imagine there's probably something fun in this manual of like the cult of imagination, where not only are there like the rules, but there are all these various like idioms and expressions and sayings that we develop around creating kind of like this cult of imagining harder. And they're written in the margins. There are things that you should expect to say if you're approached by senior management.
I love that. Yeah, and all the stuff in kind of Severance, if people watch that, all the manuals that are there that like are kind of in between what you're talking about, like very cultish type of content, but then also like very weird, like the way to live life type of things. And I don't know, I love that idea of like sayings that you have to repeat back, and like call and cadence type of stuff is really cool.
The Severance is a perfect example, because you've got those when they visit the Hall of Founders, and they all have their slogans. I could just imagine right now the velvet painting of Augie, that has the slogan that he's famous for, that the entire organization rallies around.
Totally.
I like when Chris, when you and I had our one-on-one, like I love the idea, and I think for the all the reasons that Dre's mentioning, and also as you guys are talking, I'm wondering, is like what's the undergirding kind of thing that you want? So it's interesting, it's engaging, it's fun, it's like, oh cool, and it's got that wonderfully shitty spiral bound thing that you get at Kinko's. Like, I want it spiral bound, it's nice and it's the right size, and it's got tabs, so like procurement, how to get a pencil and that kind of stuff. And then what's the deeper conversation outside of it? So is there and this is where the work is as interesting as doing the fun creative stuff, which is like, what is the undergirding organizational principles that are being evoked? One imagines that there is what was going on in the writers' room when they put together all that stuff for Severance, for example. Was it just this is our ironic take on the hypocrisy of large human organizations, or is there something in this world that we want to that the show is talking about that is meant to be reflective, as opposed to just pure goofy National Lampoon entertainment, which is why, and I don't know, I've been reading.
No, but I think like some of the themes that come out for me for Severance is like this concept in work where it's like, bring your whole self to work. They're clearly not wanting you to do that, right? Like they want you to bring your innie to work. They don't want you to bring you to work. And so I think there's some things around this idea of like, what does it mean to acknowledge a lot of things, but also have to now take the stance that, yes, we say we care about you. We say we want you to bring your whole self to work, but we also need to protect all of our executives and the business from all of you, basically. And so I think there's something like that. I think this like teetering back and forth between gigification of work, like what does it mean for everybody to be a freelancer versus this idea of like, we're going to now create a cult where everybody just works for forever on this type of thing. There's like a tension inside of that. Or at least a desire, I think, to have cults, but that are gig workers for some reason. And so like, what would a cult full of gig workers be like, I think is interesting. And then I think there's real issues, I think, just about like decision-making in general. It's something that I specialize in, and people just want to keep doing things the way that they do them, when even though it wastes time, it creates a lot of like bad decisions, usually middling decisions. And so I wonder what if we take the idea of a cult, like what would a cult do to try to make things much better when it comes to the decision making, but maybe at the cost of other things. Like maybe we don't the place I work uses consensus driven decision making an awful lot, but that doesn't usually make the best decision. It means that we create like we have to make sure everybody's okay with it. That doesn't mean we make a decision that is maybe the best for our values or something like that. And so I think there's like a real fighting between strategy and values and what people want to get out of work. And things like that. So I don't know those, and then return to office, like this idea of like, is there such a thing as water cooler time? How much does that actually matter? All those things are like issues that keep popping up for me. And then power structures, of course, right? Like right now, if I have a role where I kind of see it as my job to disagree with my manager publicly a lot of the time. And I don't know if like, that's a very tenuous role. And so I think power structures inside of these organizations are really interesting to talk about as well in hierarchies. So anyways, that's like just off the top of my head. I think there's like a bunch of these themes that are coming out for people when it comes to like, what does work mean to them as well?
This reminds me of a really interesting, this is brilliant virtual reality video game that came out like 2015. And I don't normally enjoy virtual reality experiences in general, but this one it's just such a work of art. You kind of step into this VR space and you're in this future where robots have taken over all the jobs. And what humans do for kind of like entertainment is they like have like a job simulator that's like the robot showing you what it was like to have a job. So they try to get you to go be a chef or work in an office. But there's all these, all how a robot might try to understand what an office job is. Like, yeah, we don't really know what you were doing all day and what were these humans actually doing, so like some of it is, oh yeah, like you got to have you got to throw a stapler at your boss because he's telling you, just the idea of, if you look objectively at jobs, they're so absurd. None of it makes any sense. If you were trying to explain this to someone that didn't live on Earth and hadn't been here, it's so weird. And I kind of wonder if, like an employee handbook is very similar, right? What describing what a water cooler is, and then describing why why all the office gossip is happening there, why that's important, and Yeah,
you just made me go to some weird place with like the water cooler where it's more like a biological one. So it's like the idea of like you're being nursed by some type of like water cooler is the misinterpretation of that. So, like it's super weird, but like anyways, the job simulator is supposed to link to the game. But yeah, they also came up with one which was called, I think it was Vacation Simulator, which was what we think like vacations were supposed to be back in the day. So that's really cool. I love that idea.
Yeah.
I like this thought exercise of playing the game of opposites around that. We live in a world right now where the employers have all the power and people seek employment. And then the pandemic kind of turned it into something where now people are pushing back and saying, I want to work from home now, right? Now employees have to try to convince you, well, at least come in 2 or 3 days a week, right? This type of thing. So what if we push this a little bit further, and what if the employees have the power and we flip the power structure? And then that thought experiment is like, well, what does it look like when a company is desperate to get people on board, and a company is willing to share you with another company because they'd rather have some of you than none of you? And what does the employee manual look like there? And we can probably draw some inspiration from the startup world, back in the startup boom, when it was like, hey, come work for us and we're going to lease you a BMW. What are the perks? And we're going to put you up on our corporate compound, gated community, where you can live, free amenities. Google is kind of doing it with, kitchens and so on, full cafeterias and so on. But yeah, take it to that extra level when the employees have all the power. And what if the employee has a manual? Like, this is what it's like. Welcome, company X. Welcome to working with me. Here's the manual that you have to read and understand fully in order for me to continue working with you.
Yeah, that's really cool. And there is such a thing as like employee manuals, but it usually is like senior people that are like, here's how you have to work with me. I love that idea of the opposite of that. And how you end up like actually, it seems like being a senior person would be a more and more fraught role because how do you like know that you're not in violation of some policy with one of your thousands of employees, basically. That's awesome. Yeah, and it also talks to some of the signals where there have been people that are like software engineers that are working for like 2 to 3 different FANG companies or manga companies, whatever we're calling them now, but like where they work for 2 to 3 of these companies and they collect salaries from all of them. But because they do like the real work they do is like an hour a day or something like that.
I say mango with a bunch of A's. The O
Mango, okay.
can be for OpenAI, right? I'm gonna throw them in the list now.
Let's just call it big tech going forward, you know, like
big tech energy.
Dre, what's the opposite of Myers-Briggs?
Oh, geez. I don't know, astrology.
Well, I mean, Myers-Briggs was all about, figure out how to talk to me, how to work with me, blah, blah, blah. It's so it came to mind.
Well, I thought Myers-Briggs was developed by the military to try to like figure out where you belong in the power structure. But I know that there are other ones like you're like how to work with people. Like I think Colby was something I had to do with a client once, and you would fill out your Colby profile and you would end up with a color. And then it was like red people can talk to green people, but if a green person talks to a blue person, they have to bring a purple person in because they're the mediator between the two. And it was just absolutely ridiculous. But I think psychological analysis for compatibility is a funny idea. The closest thing that I thought there's one called Strengths Finder.
Yeah.
That one's a good one because it's based on data. It's not based on more woo-woo type of concepts.
Right. It's not self-reported.
Yeah. But another thing that got me thinking, it'd be really interesting is this idea of like, what does the Ikigai model look like for this new reality? Like, what does the meaning of work mean in the future? Because right now we've got I don't know if you're familiar with the Ikigai, the Japanese model of like work and meaning and so on. It'd be interesting to play around with that. And I did want to mention something earlier when we were talking about, just either with Near Future Lab and we were talking about like cultish type of things. There's, there is the beginning of that. Like we see like All Gas No Brakes is a perfect example of hey, there's a bunch of us that are doing things and let's support one another. Let's like each other's posts. Let's promote each other's things. Let's speak on each other's podcasts. Let's do that type of thing. And those are the rules that you start to play within a group and a community. And
I'd love to have that as an enforceable rule. Because I think it would just take things. I think it would just take things to infinity. And
social credit system. That's what you got to do.
How does that work? Can we do it so I've got one less thing to deal with?
Yeah. We'll create a bot. Every time you like something, you earn some like near future credit.
Yeah. I do have to leave. I have to go help a bunch of interns right now, but I do want to just say thank you. And if you guys keep talking about this, I mean, I'll watch the recording, but I was thinking maybe creating a channel and then just starting the discussions there, if that's cool with everybody. But
let's start a channel. What's it called? Office Manual?
I think Office Manual is fine. Yeah, let's just do that now. That's the working title.
Okay, cool.
Great.
Well, thank you, everybody. I love all these ideas, and I'll start to think about like maybe doing some workshops in a smaller group setting if people are interested, and I'll get some stuff together around that. So
totally interested. Great. I think it's
that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
See you, Chris.
See you, Chris.
Yeah.
Dre, do you have more to say about your topic?
I don't know if I really had a topic. I just come in here and say random stupid things, and sometimes smart stuff happens.
Do we need to talk about androids? There's Jed's here, so here's the core Android team.
Yeah, I was firing up InDesign here in the background, and I was going to
whole start right. You got to prime that sucker.
I gotta prime that, and then but yeah, I'm gonna affect those changes today, Jed, so that we can send them off. And when I say today, I mean in the next hour, so I can free up my day to go swimming.
Did you see that I'm not sure how many that, because we didn't do a full print test, but the little glyph showed up as the box. That was the one that kind
Yeah, yeah. You know what happened? So Julian, you did some edits in the data sheet. Did you export the data sheet?
I
Did you
don't.
do a save as CSV at all? Because I noticed that the data sheet
No.
was showing some new. Anyways, doesn't matter. Um, the reason why it's doing that glitch, that gremlin, is because the data sheet, once you export the CSV, I have to open it up in a third-party application and then convert it to UTF-16 because it's currently in UTF-8. And when you
Gotcha.
convert it to 16, all the glitches turn into, like, you see all the proper special characters.
Okay. So is there anything that I need to do, or is that
No, I would say if there's no more changes to the data in the data sheet, let's just leave it as is. I'll re-export it. I'll do the thing. I'll convert it, and then I'll open it in InDesign and take a look at every single card to make sure that all the mu characters and all the n dashes and m dashes show up properly.
check?
And then we're sticking with gold type everywhere. I've got a little list. And I'll build the weird card and the chewy card, and then once that's built, I just go through and typeset, just get rid of any orphans and widows that I see and just clean it up, and then we'll have a properly packaged file for our printers today.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah, two thoughts on that, Dre. The QR codes.
Oh
How
yeah,
do-
yeah.
How do we want to finish those off?
Julian, did you want to pump out some new QR codes, a new set of codes?
Um,
Because you used a piece of software, didn't you?
yeah, it was something that ChatGPT wrote for me.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So if you asked ChatGPT and you ran it through like a software that, or like that pumped out a bunch of QR codes, right?
Let me find it. It was
Can I ask a question in the meantime? So just so I understand the evolution or the change. Originally, we have the three words that, when you hold up the phone or whatever you're scanning with, it's just going to give those to it, searches the random things. We talked about changing it to androidsdreams.ai. Dre, you spoke about it going not necessarily to just androidsdreams.ai, but like one other page where you could maybe input the keywords, or are we losing the keywords altogether and just going with like a page that it goes to? I guess is my question.
Well, here's my thinking. I like the keyword thing. I think I think the 3 different words per card is cool. There's something nice and unique about that.
Yeah.
I think it should go to add androidsdream.ai / like a page, and then you do the whatever the variable, like the operation or whatever it
the
is.
query parameters.
The query parameter.
So those
And then
show
put
up
the
there.
query. So what it means is that if there isn't something to process the query on that page, it just takes you to that page, which would be, let's just call it codes / codes. It just goes to the codes page, and the codes page would be like, hey, this is the Android's Dream codes page, under construction. Come back later once we build something. It could be that. And then if there is something working, then it'll just read. It'll be like, oh, I recognize these codes. I'm going to deliver your sheep on the thing and whatever. And then androidsdream.ai, the original URL, that's just the homepage. That just stays the way it is.
Yeah.
That's how I'm imagining it. I'm happy to go any way, but to me, it's more of a technical thing out of my scope in terms of like figuring out the query parameters and what do we want to do in the long term versus the short term. And I think for the short term, it's kind of fine. But I think it does have to resolve to a URL.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess my thinking and question there was more specifically, it's like I do like the 3 words. I think they're interesting, and not to lose that if we go to a URL, and if both can happen without a big deal, that's great. That's sort of my take on it.
Yeah, it sounds like if Julian, if you said, hey, ChatGPT, here's a list of cool words. Can you create 60?
Exactly. That's basically what happens. So it generates the words, and then it reads the words. So that code that I just put in the channel
Yeah.
is essentially the code that ChatGPT wrote. And so this words.txt, I can't, it's I think it's just
Yeah.
new lines or
So to do
something,
this-
whatever. So it does that. So sorry, let me just finish. So
Yeah.
it does that, and it generates the QR codes. But right now, the QR codes it generates are just those words. So I have to make the QR code generate the URL, question mark, and then the list of query parameters. But the QR code will not show you directly, as it does now, those words. The words will be in the query in the URL
Yeah.
string. So they're not living someplace else. If you cared about the words, you could look at the URL, but you'd have to get the URL out of your phone, which is basically opening a browser page, and then look at the so it's not going to be just like, oh, here are those words, until maybe when you went to the web page, depending on who's going to make the web page. So that's a question, right? Who's going to make the website? We shouldn't just assume that I'm going to do it. Then the page could show, here are the words, and here's your sheet, and typographically done up, kind of interesting and fun and nice. But right now I think we just need to get the QR code. But no, once those QR codes are out in the world, in other words, they're printed and people are buying them, they're gonna try to go to something, and so something needs to show up.
Well, the great thing is that at least they go to something, right? Whereas right now they go to nothing. They show you words.
They just show you words. Yeah.
Well, they don't show you words. They take you to Google because every QR code assumes it's a URL. So
not when I scan it. When I scan it, unless the QR codes when I scanned it, my iPhone shows me these words. But let me tell. I don't have one to test.
If the words are long, they get truncated because it's only so long. So you
Yeah.
might not see the third word.
Yeah, my
then-
or go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, I think it just the QR code reader assumes that you're going to tap on it to take you somewhere, right?
Yeah.
What happens when you scan it, Jed?
When I scan it, it shows me the three words, and then my next inclination, I guess, is to tap that, and then it takes me to like the Google page that searches the three words. With
Got it. Okay.
URL.
So it assumes that you're searching for something.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, to respond to what you were saying, Julian, like and Dre, I guess the bare minimum of there's this, let's call this the simple splash page of androidsdoing.ai, and then this takes you to a / and then to just call it like plug in your keywords for something page. That can be I guess as simple as a field that maybe presents the words, or obviously it's some information. But
Why don't you make the do a wireframe? And so because I think all these things are possible, but I think we're getting into the weeds. Like, what is it that you're imagining could or should or possibly would happen?
Yeah.
When they go to that page.
Yep. And
so I think the simplest thing is that they actually, but then you could have, to your point, if someone just goes to the page, I don't know, I'm making this up. It could be like, beautiful homepage that's like slightly vague and mysterious and maybe 8-bit. I don't know, I'm making stuff up, and there's a sheet there and it says enter your information, passcode required. And if you're in the know, you're like, oh, these are my 3 words. But right now we don't have those 3 words anywhere except embedded in a non-human readable little square. So someone would have to have it gets a little bit messy, but I don't think it's a big issue. It's just that edge case when someone sees that, even if they have the card, they don't know that they're 3 words.
Right. What they're going to do is scan, and they're going to push a button, and it's going to take them to a page.
It's going to take them to a page. Yeah.
And then from there, I don't know how complicated it is to present the 3 words on that page or not. Is that complicated?
In principle, no. I mean, it's entirely possible. And I'm not sure what you mean by complicated. I think it's complicated to find someone to build a page.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, I guess. Like, how hard is it? It's a
query parameters are present in the URL string, which they would be if we get everything right. Then, depending on the platform and mechanism that someone's using to build the web page, you can that it's trivial to extract those. And then it's a question of like, okay, so then how do you present them? What's the framework that allows you to present them? How do you want them presented? Is it just like, just 3 words sitting on a blank page? Is it 3 words floating and moving around in some kind of, following your cursor? Is it 3 words in
Yeah.
a font that isn't a web font, all those kinds of things is where it gets, that's the work.
Yeah,
That's the work,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I feel like that's a that's just a
Yeah,
That's a
4% this-
Fiverr request.
It might be, it might be.
Like, yeah, I mean, it's just
Potentially.
like it's a very very basic website that you could just hire somebody on Fiverr to just
Yeah.
do the thing.
I'm just
and
gonna
then
say it's basic. It's basic because you said so.
Yeah.
And
Well-
so then now our website became basic. I don't know if it is. That's why I'm saying maybe you see what I'm saying? Like I'm not trying to be antagonistic. I'm just trying to say like, yeah. I mean, I could also I'm sure I could gen it up myself in an hour. I could also ask ChatGPT to gen it up and it would do it in 4 seconds, but it's work that needs to be done. And maybe we shouldn't assume that I'm not saying maybe we should assume it's basic, but maybe we shouldn't. And Jed, you have a go at like, what would you like to see? And then we'll tell you like, man, I don't know about this,
Sure, and I probably
this
have
helium
like,
filled part about it that you're talking about. And it can't live, on the side of a small farm animal as a sandwich board.
All right, so here's the conversation. So then the conversation we should be having.
Dre, you're
is-
suddenly like way zoomed in. Did you do something? I feel like no, you're into
Yeah,
it.
no,
You're
I'm on a
leaning
different.
forward.
I'm on a
in,
different.
he's
I'm on a
leaning in.
different. Oh, I'm leaning forward. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. You're into the work. It means you're digging what's being laid down.
Leading in. Let me say, I
digging.
could say, I mean, I've definitely thought of, I mean, there's some visuals from early days of this, of like perhaps what a web presence would look like. I think I've said it that like informing people of the rule set that creates the collecting mechanic should be present somewhere on the web. And so these are things that, yes, I could
Build it out. Like
Exactly.
build out. Like have fun. Don't worry about the to the degree that.
I have some things. I think I need to present it to you guys like a little bit more clearly. And
Yeah,
then
just sketch it out.
Mhm.
Whatever. Do your whatever you're doing. One of the M's or the F, like Mural, Miro, Figma, or whatever.
it's all
And then
Figma.
we can talk
It's all
about it.
Figma. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, I think it could be something super fun, and I think
If I
and
could if I could also learn to chat GPT a website in 4 seconds, that would be awesome. So maybe
I mean, I'm sure if you went there and you said like, hey, ChatGPT, I need a website, and maybe it's like built in Node.js or something
Right.
that needs to be able to serve a static, and it needs to do this, it would have a go at it, and it might get you close.
Right, okay. So
I mean, I've asked it things
all
like that
good.
I've known in the past, but just couldn't remember. It's like, how do I install this on GitHub? And it's like, I do. Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say I would want to set like the deadline of when people start, being able to receive things, obviously that there's something there.
Yeah.
So that's,
Well, I think, and also this is where I think we should be. I know that we're eager to kind of get it out there, but I think that it's got to be right. So I don't think we should rush ourselves. If you have like a really beautiful vision of what the website should be, and we look at it and it's be like, yeah, it's going to take a little bit. It's going to take a couple weeks. Then that's what it should take. Like I don't think there's no rush
it
to
can always be
market.
a
Kind of.
come back in a few minutes kind of thing. That's fine.
Wait,
I-
what's the come back in a few minutes thing? What's that?
If someone has the card in their hands and they're scanning something and we feel like we're not quite ready with what to present to
No. We shouldn't ship the cards then. We shouldn't do. Why would I don't understand why we would do that if it's
Oh.
not ready.
I don't know. I mean, I was just thinking that the cards in the book would take priority, I guess.
Well, it's a whole experience. So if because the cards are also the website.
Yeah. I mean,
I think it should all be ready because so you have that beautiful unboxing experience where it's not like you get the toy, but you got to go now to the store
yeah,
to get the batteries. But it's Sunday and it's 1978 and there are no stores open on Saturday.
yeah, no, I agree, and I think also, yeah, I think that it shouldn't take more than a couple weeks to. I think that's like a fine amount of time to get something up there.
Again, you're saying that
Yeah.
because that's what you want, which I totally respect and get, and
Well,
maybe it will be
it's-
the case.
Yeah, maybe it will be the case, but it's kind of just. I mean, look, I'm a great one at iterating for endlessly, so it's
I'm
like,
not gonna let you do that. I promise you, Jed.
yeah,
Because I'm
yeah,
as invested in this as you are. It's
Right.
not. This isn't. What was it? Not. What was the other one that you're still gonna end up doing?
which one?
The your NFT project, for the
Oh.
4-year NFT project.
Oh yeah, it's now kind of it's getting into the ordinal space, which is a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen, dude. We are talking orders of weeks. We're not talking orders of years.
Yeah. No, I do feel like that I mean, I have a clear idea of like a web presence should certainly have this information, and then maybe there's a bunch of things that haven't been thought about. So I think I think we just need to talk about that.
Yeah, just I mean, like I said, my suggestion would be just start messing around.
Yeah.
Because now we're in a phase where, to a certain degree, it's like we're going to be waiting on production, right? And so in those periods of time, who knows? You might be absolutely right. We might get it done. I just don't want to over-index on that to the point where we feel like we're rushing ourselves for no particularly good reason. Because it's not like a client deadline. It's not like, oh my God, the trade show is going to be in 2 weeks and we have to package things up and ship them or anything of that sort.
Okay, so here's a couple things just to get to spark some like beginnings of making that page.
I feel like we scared everyone else off.
Yeah,
well,
we did.
I mean, I think we do have some. I mean, I think we do want to get things done too, because
Yeah.
if we're looking out like a year into like an idea,
Dude, it's not a year. It's not a year. Take it easy. It's fine. But I don't want to have. I think the experience of like you scan the thing and come back later, that doesn't make any sense to me. I would not.
Yeah.
I would not ship a product that did that. That's like old school bad Nokia stuff, where the organization is so dysfunctional.
yeah, I guess
that
they
do
that was a
those things.
conversation. I didn't think that would really happen. I guess I was just trying to have a conversation like we could get it done.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I was just thinking like, you know, what's the minimum viable product that you can point people to that gets us. But if that's not the case, then let's not do that. Let's just all we need is like, what's the idea? What, like, when you come to it, what's the idea? What is the design? What do we expect?
Mhm.
We have, you know, we understand there's like every card is going to be 3 words. Every person who shares the same card are going to have those 3 words. So it's not unique to the individual. It's only unique to the card. And we have assets. So it means that those 3 words can conjure, I mean, there's a lot of options, right? Those 3 words can conjure the sheep. So we can have a nice high res sheep. You know, what do they get for putting those 3 words in there that is unique to their sheep?
Yeah.
And it could be something as simple like, you know, just go through Photoshop and we make a shit ton of like wallpaper, go totally old school. You could download your custom wallpaper of your sheet. And the only way that you can get that is if you know the 3 words. That's a really, you know, kind of
all
dumb
kinds
idea,
of things. I mean, there
but
could be
there's
things
so many
like
things you can do.
there could be to you know, just to kind of back up on myself. There could be a thing. So, you know, maybe MVP is like you see the sheep, you know, and I don't know, you know, there it is, and you know, the wallpaper things. But there could be just be a button like customize your sheep coming soon.
Mhm.
Like that makes more sense to me than you don't see anything, for example. If we wanted to have that capability and anticipated it and wanted to at least commit to having that feature to the point where we would be embarrassed if we had a button and then that never came and people were emailing us and it's like, what the fuck, why? I thought I was gonna be able to customize my sheet. Could be a button. I don't know, maybe figure out how to make turn it into a, you know, like the little avatar deals you got. Need an avatar for your Discord account? Right click here.
Oh
sort
yeah.
of thing.
Yeah, that could be it. Like very simple like that, like having, you know, here's your downloadable version of your sheet that you can use.
Yeah, and I love the wallpaper because we could have, I mean, you imagine we could do the sheep, you got transparency, we could have a bunch of like backgrounds of different weird alternative future farms.
Yeah, do the Windows background and you just place your
Sheep
transparent
in there.
PNG sheep on the Windows background.
That's right. A shitty screensaver where it just kind of like they just pop into different parts of the. Remember, there used to be those bad screensavers.
Yeah, what happened to screensavers? Let's bring that
I
back.
know, bring back screensavers. Like After Dark, remember those people? I heard it was like a
Yeah.
billion-dollar industry.
It's based-
Remember back in the day?
The toasters, right? The
Yeah,
flying toasters.
the flying toasters. But there was that company that had like screensavers, and that was like
Yeah, After Dark. Yeah.
After Dark. That was like half the reason why you got the goddamn computer. You paid for them shits, right?
It was the most sophisticated piece of software you had on the computer. Like it was
That's
doing,
right. That's right.
it was pretty much doing, excuse me, like ray tracing
Yeah.
and shit while you weren't busy.
And I
then
don't
you
even
would
know if
come
there
and,
was a
like,
reason to save the screen.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, was screen burner the thing? I think it maybe was.
Well, maybe we create a screen burner, and the whole idea is like not a
Just, like,
screen
sizzle your
saver, but
screen.
it basically sizzles your screen. It just overloads it with like
Yeah, it just
white
goes full
noise.
HDR, like too much saturation.
Yeah.
Ah!
240 megahertz animation
With just a sheep with like
Yeah.
lasers pointing out of its eyeballs. All kinds
Yeah,
of
that's
stuff.
awesome. Like that. A sheep with lasers pointing out of its eyeball, drawing words that you will slowly discover.
Laser eyes.
Yeah, yeah. Drawing the time is now every second is now 8:19 and 43 seconds, 8:19 and 44 seconds.
All right, so let's do this. Let's have a think about what that destination is. And what I'll do is I'll hold off in making any of those edits until we figure that out, so that we know what those QR codes actually point to. And then once we get it all sorted, then we can do one final pass and get it all ready for print.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask ChatGPT to modify that code so that it has
The URL.
query URL with the query parameter.
Yeah, so I talked to Jim this morning, more on the logistics side, I guess. And I said to him, yeah, I told him that, you know, we wanted to do these few changes. I mentioned to him that the biggest one was probably just adjusting the URL. I said that you know, the idea was to give it to him on Monday, if possible. And I talked to him about Julian when we saw each other, maybe what was it, 2 days ago? You know, quality control with, like, you know, making sure they weren't going to be weird cut and stuff. And he spoke to that, saying
Okay.
that yeah, there's ways that they can limit that, especially on a short run. One of them was like cutting them from the backside rather than the front side, so they're more regular. Did you catch any of the conversation that Dre and I continued yesterday with, like, the idea of round versus not round?
I didn't. Let me take a look. Was in the little private thing?
No, actually, we switched it to the public one.
Oh, cool. Let me see.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And basically, I think Dre, well, there's two, Dre made a good point of, like, most everything on these cards are angled as far as design. There's, like, the only thing that's round is just the head and the back. And that, so from, like, I think a graphical standpoint, tell me if I'm wrong, what you're saying, Dre, what I understood was that you felt like the square felt better for the design. And then my realization, I think, from, like, you know, the other day to today was that the round cards in general tend to lean towards gameplay or in design of the, you know, the work kit, you know, using them for things. And I randomly asked two people. I asked Jim about it, and he went to that too. He's just like, yeah, round cards usually are some kind of game in the industry. And then there's this place across the street from where I am that's like one of those, it's got pinball machines and, like, books and, like, you know, Magic the Gathering type of people. And they were talking the same thing. I went in there and I saw a deck of cards, and yeah, so I mean, so then I was just like, you know what, maybe it's better that they're just different too or they stick more to traditional, like, collecting and grading. So I at this point I was kind of like, yeah, okay. I'm fine with the idea of being square edges as opposed to round edges.
Mhm.
And, I think that's how Dre kind of was saying that same thing. I know that you prefer the round edges, so that's sort of where I was at with it. The cost of it's about $400 extra, and the time frame is roughly maybe 10 working days.
All right.
So that's all the details I got.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm easy with whatever you go with. I just always like to have an opinion on the design, and I think the round corners look good because it gives a little extra finish. It's a little extra detail that looks good. And you're right, it does look more like playing cards. But when I looked at the two, it was like, yeah, the square corners kind of give it the trading card look, and it just fits with the angular, the straight lines and right angles that are everywhere else. Both look good in my opinion. It's just, what do you want it to do? Do you want it to be trading cards? Do you want it to be playing cards? What's the feel that you want? I'm easy. I say you're the boss. You're the boss of corners, man.
The corner boss, corner boys. Okay, well let's we don't have to make a decision right now.
Yeah, I mean, you don't actually. I mean, even logistically, even if we have the file in on Monday, and they approve it, and they want to go ahead and print the cards, and well, I guess they're going to cut them at some point, but yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I would say at this point, yeah, think about Julian. If you're like, yeah, I want them to be round. I mean, let's do it. But I think they'll be good either way. And
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Let me see. What else did I miss? Yesterday. You were over here yesterday, right, Dre? That was yesterday.
I think it was it just yesterday? I guess it was.
Yeah, it was just yesterday.
It's been a weird couple days for sure.
Yeah.
So I thought it was 2 days ago, but it was just yesterday, right?
It was just yesterday.
Yeah, let me see what else, if I missed anything to talk about. Basically, I was just going over that the gold looked good, and then we started talking about the round versus the square. And then yeah, if you just read it, you'll kind of see all the thoughts I think we just talked.
Yeah. Yeah,
But-
Dre, it looks so much better without the drop shadow. It just looks tighter.
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
The colors seem just different actually.
I wonder what the deal. I mean, it's printing, so who knows? Like maybe Tony loaded the ink, and he was smoking a cigarette when he did it, and the dangle lash kind of fell in. Who knows?
Yeah.
Because
it's hard-
they were the same color. I mean, well, most of them were the same colors, weren't they? And I know some Dre had seen. I think I remember seeing or hearing that you tweaked them. Didn't hear it.
Yeah,
you
there
read
was
it.
like there was just one alternate blue that we tried, and then we decided the red that they chose wasn't as good. And then, what you sent yesterday looked great. Like the gold looked awesome on the red, especially the one
Yeah.
color that they objected to, which was funny.
Yeah. And then if you hold the cards, Dre, which Julie and I did, it's nice. I mean,
shiny.
you hold it in the right light, you can read it perfect. And then with some of the lighter colors, it's a little hard to read, but it makes you sort of be tactile with it, which I think is really like a nice feature. It was kind of, I guess,
Active observation.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of just like a ribbon is with, reflective sort of. So it seemed, yeah. And I was saying to Julian that I was pleasantly surprised that the gold actually does look reflective in gold, and it's not just a flat weird thing. It appears to be not just a flat color. And yeah, the sizing I think turned out nicer too, a little smaller, and that allowed the sheet to get a little bigger.
I was just gonna say something. Totally forgot. Oh, it was just a no. I remember some guy backed on Kickstarter who's doing that. Dre, you following that Shift Happens Kickstarter?
No.
Some guys doing like this epic. I think it's gonna be 3 volumes, books on the history of the keyboard. This is one of those nerdy things that I love. Dre, look at him. Look at him. Did it just do that on my end, or is that for everyone?
That's everyone.
It's like, oh, take it easy, man.
I totally random, but just like,
That's great.
That's a good one. Have you guys seen King of Kong?
There he
Yeah.
goes again. King of Kong. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, that's a
what is
great
that?
documentary on King Kong, right? Or
Like-
Donkey Kong.
Yeah, on like the
Oh, do I
World
even know about
Championship
this?
Yeah, it's great.
from 2007. It's worth watching. A friend of mine mentioned it yesterday for some reason, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna look at it, and it's pretty cool.
King of Kong. Okay, I'm gonna have to look that. I'm gonna have to look at that.
And did I show you this random book I think about showing up? That one.
Oh, I saw you. I saw
song-
that picture, but I didn't know. What is it? A collection of the
I
collectibles?
can't see it.
Shit.
Zoom needs to make it so that you can.
Oh,
show
Oh,
it.
dude, you know,
It's basically, it's 1970 to 1997.
yeah.
All of the basically the toys or items or like cardboard cutouts of the boxes.
So,
of
so
Happy Meals.
when we did TBD, someday we'll have to do this. When we did TBD in Detroit, one of the attendees was the head curator, Mark Gruther, head curator. I think he must be still there at the Henry Ford Museum. This was 10 years ago, and we did a day of at the Henry Ford Museum, and we didn't fuck around with all the public stuff. He took us to the archives, and there's just drawer after drawer of all these things, and one of the drawers had like the ruby slippers, the actual ruby slippers from the Wizard of
yeah.
Oz, and then another series of drawers had every single McDonald Land Happy Meal little
Oh, that's
toy,
Yeah.
that you get, all like beautifully archived, and it was like filled with that kind of stuff. All like, it wasn't like a clutter. Actually, there was a whole barn facility that where they're just like, we just ran out of room, like original Van de Graaff generators like they have at the Griffith Observatory, the Sparky ball. Like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, this was Tesla's fourth model, kind of thing. You're just like, fucking hell, man. But they had that thing. I'm sure like they must have gone, whoever did that must have gone to the archives to
Yeah.
catalog that stuff.
Yeah.
Presumably, or
Yeah,
someone.
like it looks like it's three people that did it. I just picked it up at a well, where did I get that?
You gotta just turn off your back thing. What's back there? Are there like naked people?
No. Yeah. Okay, how do I do that? Let's see.
What's back? I'm curious. The fuck's back there?
It's just I'm just in the studio today.
Yeah, great. Let's see it.
All right, where do I
It's
where do I
one
turn
thing.
it off?
You got to go to the Zoom settings, and then there's a thing called, I think it's called backgrounds. It's called background and effects. There's a little arrow next to the video camera on the bottom left.
Okay.
Background and effects, and then you can
See what's
You
going
can-
on back there.
change it.
Or yeah, choose just take that off. There you go. Not much
Yeah.
going on, really.
No,
yeah.
which is great. Look, you're in a place where things happen. Look at that.
Place.
Yeah.
There's maybe I should just turn this around for a minute. Does that work?
I mean, getting a vibe, looking at the ceiling. It's a nice ceiling.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Here's
Oh,
the-
there's the It's a Bob cart.
there's an It's a cart right in front of you.
Yeah.
Um,
Who's that running around? Is that Bodie?
that's Dash.
Dash.
Yeah, Dash is hanging today.
Yeah.
This is like his week off camp, so he's been hanging a little bit with me.
Hey, Dash. Uncle Julian.
He's doing some drawings. We're gonna go across the street to do some pinball at 11 for a few minutes.
Hell yeah.
He's never done it. He's never used. He doesn't even know what pinball machines are. So we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
There's some old It's a Bob stuff there in that corner.
Does Dre know about It's a Bob? Dre.
I don't know. Oh wait, what's that in the background? Is that you in the back?
Good one. Good one. Hell yeah. We that kind of thing. I
also-
love that kind of shit.
That was hilarious.
That's a good one.
Let's see here.
Oh, I can't wait. My
Wonderful.
brother's in town next
Oh,
week.
wait.
We're gonna make all kinds of weird stuff.
Here's the electric sheep in real life.
Yeah, there you go.
The bare bones of it. Here's
Is Doppelganger Dre gonna come back in the room again? Is
Yeah,
he
it's on
on
a
loop?
loop.
He's hearing
Anyway, there's some strange drawings that I do from time to time.
it. Yeah, that's right. Climb in your ear. Smudge your glasses. Like
I
do
did
graffiti on
that,
your
like,
face. Can you do like do graffiti on your face kind of thing?
Yeah. I did that early pandemic when it was like everyone was doing Zoom calls. I started making random loops. Like in my office hasn't looked like this for a few years.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
Yeah, you want to say hi, Dash? That's
Hey
Dre.
Dash.
Julian. You know Julian. He's always
Yeah,
at birthday parties.
from
and
yeah,
events.
birthday parties and pizza nights.
That's right.
And
Julian?
fondant on the cake. I love that. That's why I come for the fondant.
Yeah. I think Julian's been to almost every one of your birthday parties, except for maybe a pandemic thing.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, represent.
Yeah. Totally. So yeah, that's my weird room there.
Nice.
Yeah. Some other, oh, this is some box organization. It's always a good one to see.
Yeah, I love that.
Old school.
I'm all about clear plastic boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then some laser cut action on top of the It's a Cart. There we go.
What do you think and I don't even know if we're gonna do this because I gotta find out from the city if I'm allowed to do it. 'Cause I'm still thinking about the cart for the thing. Yeah. There was Gray again.
Yeah, nice. Holy shit. Look at that, Dash. Look, check this out. Look what, Dash, look at this second. See Dre?
Oh wait, it's not gonna happen for a while.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anyway,
just keep watching. Just keep watching. Dre's like a master magician.
watch Dre.
This is the watched pot thing.
Yeah, my Julian, in case my texting doesn't, make sense, I don't know if we talked about it, but my thought of like how to efficiently build a cart that you could sell books or whatever from would be to, in theory, I felt like you could get a decent size one that's pretty
Here we
much.
go. Here we go.
What? That's his twin brother.
Brother, how do you do that?
How does he do that? I don't know. Dre's like a magician in a lot of ways when you have
I mean, look at him. And plus he lives in Canada and there are a lot of magicians up there.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, he lives in Canada. So he's tuning in from
Is that
Canada.
actually happening?
Oh,
Is it
oh,
like this?
yeah, there you go. Go. Look at that.
Oh look.
Oh.
There he is again.
Oh.
Nice again.
Oh, he stuck out his tongue.
That's awesome.
It's like Ronald McDonald in the background or something.
Yeah, that's right. Or no, the Hamburglar would be the Hamburglar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hamburger.
totally the Hamburglar.
Like,
They retired him, didn't they?
Oh wait, look at this
They
one.
retired them all.
Yeah.
No more Mayor McCheese. No more. Actually, Grimace. They brought back Grimace Shake. That was a thing.
Yeah,
bubblehead.
this is Big Boy.
Oh yeah, Big Boy. Bob's Big Boy.
Yeah. That was one of my favorite as a kid, was the Bob's Big Boy. I'd come visit my grandmother and we'd go there.
I don't know if we had those back in New Jersey. Was that a Maine thing, or has that always been a California
No,
thing?
neither. No, my grandparents lived in Palm Springs when I was little.
Oh, okay, so
we
of
went to
course,
Palm
yeah,
Springs once a year, and like that was my favorite place to go, was Bob's Big Boy.
sure.
Yeah, totally. Oh yeah, here's a hamburger right here.
All right. All this talk of Hamburglers is making me want to
Right.
go steal a patty.
Oh yeah, we have a good place called Window, which has a really good.
Oh, I'm gonna meet Scott Smith, and he was like, "Let's go to Juiceton." And I was like, "Fuck them, they don't allow dogs," and so we're gonna go to Window. But so yeah, Mary and I went a couple of times to the one over in Silver Lake, but
Yeah.
they got one here in Venice on Rose.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, damn good burger, and it's actually reasonably priced. It's not like a $14 burger.
No, it's like $4.25 for.
Yeah, cheese for another 50 cents or something. Cheese for 2 bits.
Yeah. Yeah. And they have a decent salad if you want a kale salad.
Yeah,
I like it.
we're gonna go there, Dre, when you're out here.
Yeah, totally. We're gonna go to
Gotcha.
all the places.
We can go all the places. We're gonna do the who was that guy who was the food critic for the LA Times? Like he would just chow his way through Los Angeles, but he was always going like if a place had an A rating, which is basically nice, clean, hygienic, he wouldn't go there. He's like, I do B only. That's
Oh,
the
yeah.
real deal.
Yeah. Jonathan Gold.
Jonathan Gold, yeah, and he would time his kind of grazing through Los Angeles to like all these weird neighborhoods. You can get the best like roast rabbit only in Atwater or whatever, and but that would be it. The time it took him to go from the breakfast joint to the lunch joint was sufficiently long because he's driving around or whatever that he's like now ready for lunch. And the guy was corpulent. He was a big guy. I remember I saw him one time and it was like he had two different shoes on. I was like, man, this guy is just the real deal. Real deal. It's like,
That's awesome.
you don't even, you're just putting on whatever's on the floor right in front of you.
Yeah, actually, Dre, if you're interested in food kind of stuff like that, there's a documentary with him that's I think pretty good.
Which one's that?
I think, oh geez, I can figure it. Let's see. It's
I don't know
like
if I've seen that.
something gold.
Yeah,
Worth
I'll look
checking
at
out.
it.
It's really
What's it? Jonathan Gold is his name?
Jonathan Gold. Yeah, I think he
Yeah,
got
okay, I'll
he
look
got a
him up.
Pulitzer or something for food reporting. The other documentary you might dig, Dre, just to give kind of prime your pumps for LA. A
Yeah.
friend of mine did it. It's called Donut King. Donut
City
King.
Gold.
Donut King. All right,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
That's a good one. I think it's on Netflix.
Oh yeah, I really enjoyed Donut King.
It's
I
good.
watched a little
Harold did great with
documentary.
that.
Yeah.
I watched a documentary yesterday about somewhat about LA that kind of got me primed a bit. Was it was about the band Suicidal Tendencies,
Oh yeah.
Okay.
and yeah, they're like basically like a band their first band to fuse kind of punk and metal,
Mm.
based out of Venice when Venice was like run down
Rough,
and shitty.
rough. Yeah. Venice is where
and
you came
they-
to get drugs and a punch in the face.
Yeah, and they had kind of like a lot of gang culture references in their image and their music, like 10 years before gangster rap. And like hugely influential band from the early 80s before and I like I was a kid listening to Suicidal Tendencies. Like I loved that. I loved all that crossover metal punk stuff. So
Yeah.
so yeah, I
Yeah.
watched that and I was
Henry
like, yeah,
Henry
man,
Rollins era kind of. Well, I mean, he's still on
Black Flag
KCRW,
and-
I think.
Yeah, well, back then it was like the crossover. Well, DRI was the band that coined the term crossover because they had
Hmm.
an album called Crossover, and they were like metal. But yeah, DRI, Nuclear
Pretty Rotten
Assault,
Scoundrels. You're all right.
yeah,
Yeah,
Dirty Rotten
I had a-
Imbeciles.
Yeah, I had a relationship to that stuff through skateboarding as a kid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that goes. The Dogtown guy was the brother of the singer of Suicidal Tendencies.
Yeah. What are some other ones? JFA, Jody
Mhm.
Foster's Army, Circle Jerks.
Yeah,
Some people know this one. I don't know if you will. Crumb Suckers.
yeah.
You remember that was like some of them were like DC based, I think. So they're East Coast but South.
Yeah.
A lot of them were coming out of there. A lot of that punk, that era.
There's a lot of good punk stuff. But yeah, I watched
So
that
what
yesterday.
which one was it? What was it called again, Dre? When
What,
you
the-
talking-
what I watch is there's a YouTube channel called Punk Rock MBA.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And he
There it
does
is.
pretty good kind of breakdowns. And the one that showed up was for Suicidal Tendencies, and I watched it and I was like, man, this brings back so many memories. Because I didn't know any of this context. I was just a little kid listening to this music, and now I'm like, shit, I think I'm gonna probably dial up the first couple Suicidal Tendencies albums and give that a listen today.
That's a good one. Yeah, it was totally because a lot of at that point a lot of the skateboards had graphics with some of these punk and some of the art was
Yeah.
with that.
And that what's our friend what's his name was doing a lot of that.
Yogi.
Yogi, yeah.
Yeah, he was in that scene.
He
for
was that
sure.
was his scene. Yeah, he's got a great story about that. He got hired to do it. He was like basically illegal here from the UK, sleeping on the floor in some warehouse, and he happened to know how to use like a Mac with 512K of memory, and all these other
That's
guys were
awesome.
like, I have no idea. So he started doing the graphics.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of his backstory with skateboarding. I know that he was a professional skateboarder for a time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he just wanted to live the dream. So like moved from like dark and rainy Blimey to sunny and hot California.
Yeah, right. That was the place to come.
Yeah.
Right.
Have you gone to his thing yet? Have you gone to his museum?
I haven't been there in a while. I haven't talked to those guys so much, so yeah, it'd be fun too. I should do it. Actually, I did reach out to them maybe 2 weeks ago because I think it came across that they bought an Airstream.
They bought an Airstream. Yeah, I don't know the story. I just saw it on Instagram.
Yeah, the same thing Susie saw, and so
Yeah.
I reached out to him because we were in Ojai that weekend,
Gotcha.
and that's where it is. He's got it
Yeah.
at the place in Ojai,
Yeah.
and he just said that he's not there this weekend, but they plan on being up sometime soon.
Yeah.
That was a few weeks ago. But yeah, I should go check out their house.
I gotta ping them. Yeah, it's amazing, the whole story, and it's like, oh my god, you guys actually
So
live here.
is it a lot different right now?
I've never been to